She goes, I want you to invest in something, whether it be a business, whether it be a house, invest it. Don't sit on it because you'll use it for food for those kids and you'll lose it. I said, okay, I promise you. So she ended up passing away about 3 months later.
So you just heard Danny Hill, the owner of Hill Broadcasting. Danny Hill is part owner of Hill Broadcasting and is co-host of Danny and Kait syndicated radio show. Danny and Kait have won Best of Bakersfield, favorite in the radio personality category for 4 years in a row. Their show is currently on 11 radio stations in 6 states. And growing. He said they're negotiating some additional stuff. Danny's married to Kait, and they have 5 adorable children. Danny is also an accomplished wedding DJ, winning the Kern County Bridal Association's Wedding DJ of the Year award, and was featured on Whose Wedding Is It Anyway on TLC. In today's show, we discussed how Danny got a start. His mother left him some money, and she instructed him, son, go invest and go do something with this money other than just feed the kids. Make the investment in your future. And then later on the show, we talk about kind of what's going on with radio. We cover some of, my little question on how do social media get to play some of these songs without having licensing rights to do that. And we talk about some of the projects Danny's got coming up, and specifically one of them is definitely time sensitive. He's trying to get backpacks for kids in need, and how you can help do that. So I hope you enjoy the program today.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
Welcome to the show today. My name is Dave Flulich, and I'm here with Amanda Giacomo. And a good friend of ours is Danny Hill. He's the president and CEO of Hill Broadcasting. Before we get into today's episode, I would like to introduce our listeners and encourage our listeners to follow us on all of our social media pages. We've got Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're adding to our YouTube channel, and we typically post on Thursdays, and so that's when all of our new episodes come out. I know you've been on this before me and Amanda got involved with this podcast here, and I'm like, oh, please let me have him again. But they're like, he's one of those kind of personalities where, you can bring back more often, and something's always interesting changing your life and stuff like that. So, but I enjoy talking to you, so this was an excuse to actually sit and talk to you for about an hour, and uninterrupted by other things outside of life, right?
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I enjoy you both very much. So I'm glad I'm in an environment full of friends.
Perfect.
And it's not, who knows, wait till the questions come flying, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and oh boy, we got some questions.
Hey, let me ask you, when you voted on Bill 42C, what did you...
So I love how we met. So Amanda's never heard this story before, and some of our listeners probably heard this story before. So it comes down to a buddy of mine, Christian Beck, with Willow Ranch out there. And he says, hey, there's this dude looking for some space to do his radio program out of. And I happen to have a recording studio in my office that I did have before we went 100% virtual. And he goes, well, you got to talk to the guy. I'm like, yeah, I think I got space for him. So Danny comes down, we reach out, and we're communicating back and forth. And he comes down, look at the space, and it was basically a giant closet that I had converted to a recording studio. And he's like, oh, this is a little small. And we're walking, I'm giving a tour of my office and everything. And there's one office that we kind of had some desks in, and, this could be cool. And so we get down to my office, and he looks up on the wall, and he sees some Social Distortion posters. And he's like, you like Social Distortion? I'm like, oh, I'm a big fan of Social Distortion. Kind of like Kyle is with Metallica. Kyle loves Metallica. We'll have to show you his office on the way out, man. It's freaky. I mean, he's like a freak Metallica fan.
Then he would have, just as a side note, he would have loved the end of Stranger Things then, right? Yeah, there was a whole Metallica moment. Have you seen Stranger Things?
No.
They're trying to say that should be the next Super Bowl. That
like,
they better be the Super Bowl halftime show.
They're super excited. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your story.
Well, that's all right. So he was like, I'm like, yeah, big Social Distortion. And he goes, well, there was a time that I was a DJ up in Fresno. It was up in Fresno, and it was for this woman's radio program or show and everything. He goes, well, my cousin came up from Bakersfield with some of his buddies, and I got backstage passes into the green room to meet the band Social Distortion. And I look at Danny, I'm like, yeah, I know, I was there. He goes, what? I was one of the dudes. So his cousin was a real good friend of mine, Darren White. And so, yeah, we'd realized that we had met sometime before that. Yeah, so then he took some space in my You Grew, and I obviously went virtual with my company. I had to kick you out, but
I know
we've built a great friendship, and I'm glad to know you, bud. So anyway, that was my story of how we met.
Isn't that weird? You meet people throughout your whole life, and I've always tried to be. You always try to be nice to everybody, but when you're younger, you kind of, you're not. I don't think the nicest person, but you try to be nice, and you never think anything about it. And years later, like if I'd have been mean at that moment, like I wouldn't have got that office space from you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's weird how like you have to remember, like how nice. And I always try to remind my kids that like something you do in your 20s could literally come back and bite you in the butt in your 40s.
Absolutely.
Like you better be a nice person.
Absolutely.
Like just listen to people. Just be nice. Just try to do the best you can. And so yeah, that was fun. I'm glad I was there for that. And Social D, side story, which I never told you, they visited in Kauai when I was there. And he was in a little bar that's like the size of this room we're in now. And he's like, hey, do you care if I grab a guitar and play some songs? And everybody was eating and they're like, yeah, go for it. So he sat there in the corner and he played like an acoustic set of all of his music. It was really cool. And nobody there knew who he was except for like 4 people. And I was like, babe, that's like the lead singer of Social D. Yeah. And she's like, I don't know who that is. I'm just trying to eat. And I'm like, oh man, like this would be cool to different people.
Really cool. Really cool. Oh my God. I would die, dude. Danny, buddy, we're really happy to have you joining us today, and I really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to talk about some of the topics that we have, and I hope our listeners enjoy it. So, but to start off, man, how were you able to secure your own radio station? You were a DJ, and then now you're like a media mogul.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I'll give you the abridged version of it because it's kind of long. But yeah, I was working for a company here in town, and I came back. I was living in Hawaii, I should say. I'll start from the beginning. I was living in Hawaii, and the guy I was working for wasn't doing well financially, and my checks started getting later and later. So I didn't want to leave Hawaii, but I needed to get a more secure job because I got 5 kids, right? So I got a job as VP of programming for Ingstead Media in Kansas. I went from Kauai, Hawaii to Garden City, Kansas. And, big difference. Yeah. So I'm now in middle America, and it was really weird because I show up there and small little population, but they did radio right. I've always worked for small companies, but they knew how to make money out of nothing. So population, 20,000 people in Garden City, 30,000 Dodge City, but yet the cluster was billing $180,000 a month. And I'm like, how is that possible? Well, they were getting money from seed makers and farmers, and, they would get sponsorship on their station vehicle. And every month, if you paid them $100, we'd put your logo on the vehicle. So if it was loaded up like a NASCAR, and you guys were making money. The GM there, his name was Gil, amazing human being. And I was only there for like 8 months, but I learned a lot from him. Well, I was there through one winter storm before I realized I'm in Kansas, right? Like if you've lived anywhere else, you don't want to live in Kansas. And really nice people.
The Wizard of Oz taught us that, really.
Yeah, it is a nightmare. So I ended up, I said, hey, we got to go. We had some things come up. And I'm like, I got to get out of this. And I don't know what to do. And then I got a call from Mary Lou Gunn, who's now since passed away. And she called me up and she said, hey, we want you to come back to Bakersfield. And I said, you know what? That would be great. Because I literally had just had my mom visit, and she was having some issues with her bladder, and we didn't know what it was at the time, but she was having bladder issues, and she was going to see doctors, and I thought it was just part of getting old. Like she had to go to the bathroom all the time. It was like, okay, but it was a sign. And so I'm like, I should be closer to my mom because she lives over there in Nevada. So driving from Bakersfield to Reno, Nevada is closer than Kansas to Reno, Nevada, right? So I took the job, I came back, and within like 6 months, my mom was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and she was dying slowly, and there wasn't much I could do about it. And if you've ever seen anybody die from cancer, it's pretty horrific. Yeah. My buddy said it. He watched his wife die from it. He said it's like watching someone drown in front of you and you can't help them. And it was a great analogy. So she's slowly dying, and during her incoherentness, and it's not beautiful and magical like it is in movies where someone dies and they're like, I love you, and then they pass out. It's moaning and screaming and pain, and it's long and it's difficult. During one of her moments of clarity, because she was on a lot of painkillers for this, because it had gone to stage 4 and worked into her bones and they couldn't do anything. So she was on hospice, and she says, when I die, I didn't want to hear that because it's your mother. So I said, you're not going to die. She goes, no, when I die, I'm dying. When I die, I have a life insurance policy, and it's $100,000, and $50,000 is going to go to you and $50,000 is going to go to your sister. So your sister's going to buy a house with it, but you have 5 kids and I know you. Like, I don't like spending money. I hate spending money. I hate it with a passion. If I could save all my money, I would. She goes, I want you to invest in something, whether it be a business, whether it be a house, invest it. Don't sit on it because you'll use it for food for those kids and you'll lose it. And I said, okay, I promise you. So she ended up passing away about 3 months later. I was live on the air in Bakersfield at the time on 95.3, and I got the call. I was in the middle of a really funny bit, and my aunt called me and said, your mother just passed away. And I said, okay. And she said, do you need me to do anything? I said, no, I have to finish my show. And I got back on the air, and I finished the show. And the last break, I said, I just want everyone to know that my mother died this morning. And I started to cry. I was upset. And that was it. So then I went, and the company I was at was like, well, we need you here again tomorrow. So I said, I need a day off, right? Like, I need a bereavement day.
Right.
You know, can I have a day off? My mom just died. And they said, well, you know, today's Thursday. Why don't you take off till Monday? We'll need you back here by Monday. And I said, okay. So I took a couple days off, went talked to my mom's friend, and she was in charge of the money. And it went into my account like instantly. Like when she died, they transferred it over. And I was like, oh my God. Now for me, it was $50,000 is the most money I'd ever seen in my savings account, right? So I went from like $500 to $50,500, right? Like that's it. And I've never seen that many zeros. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Da, da, da. And my wife's like, so we're just going to sit on it, right? And I go, I promised my mom I would invest into something. And she was a little devastated. I said, it was a promise. It's not my money. It's my mom's money. It's not my money. Mm-hmm. So I was driving one day, and I did this a lot after she passed away. I was driving. I was really devastated, and I was crying. And I remember I was crying so hard that I couldn't drive anymore. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you're driving and you can't. So I pulled over because I'm like, I'm going to hit somebody. And I stopped for a second. I turned on the radio station, and I just happened to hit seek on accident, and it started to seek upwards because I was normally monitoring 95.3, which was my station I ran, and it stopped on 98.1. And I remember I was like, what is this horrible music they're playing at the station, right? I thought it was just god awful. And so I looked it up, and I realized it was independently owned by a guy named Steve. So I called him, and he answered. I got his phone number, and he answered. It was all listed on his Facebook page. So I call him up, and I'm like, hey, is this your radio station? Yeah, it's my radio station. Would you ever sell it? I mean, yeah, I'd probably sell it, but it'd have to be to the right person, because radio stations are like NFL teams. Like, you don't just sell them. Like, you have to. Usually they're just held on to. I'm like, okay. So I started the conversation with him, and then weeks went by, turned into months, and we started to become kind of friends. I found out his background, a really nice guy. He's an engineer, smart. He just had extra money, and he buys radio stations kind of for fun, really. And he didn't have a sales team, didn't have anything. So I asked him how much he'd sell it for, and he said, I'd sell it for $300,000. You know, Class A radio station, $300,000. So I was like, wow. I only have 50,000.
50,500.
Yeah, 50,500. And he wants in 300,000. So how does this work? So I called up another friend of mine, George, that guy I worked for in Hawaii, because he knew how to make something out of nothing. And he's like, it's like buying a car, dude. He goes, you don't need 300,000. You need money down, and you need to make him carry paper on it. So I said, okay. So I called him back, and I said, hey, I'd like to give you $10,000 down on your station. And he's like, get out of here. Like, I'm selling this for $300,000. I go, no. You carry the note, and I'll pay you. I'll pay you for a certain amount of time every single month. And he's like, nah, it's not worth it for me. And I said, and because I can't really afford $300,000, I need you to sell it to me for like $225. And I said, it gets better. So I'm going to give you less, and I need you to sell it for $225. And he's like, no, basically it's not going to happen. I could sell it. It's worth money. I know it's worth money. It covers a lot. So I said, all right. So I hang up the phone, and I was a little bummed about it. I went back into, my job, and I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot. So I texted him, this is fun for you. This is life-changing for me. Changed my life. And I sent him a picture of me and my kids. Send. And he texted me back, you just bought yourself a radio station.
Oh.
And that was it. And then I knew it was my mom. So first song I played on every station since then that I purchased was my mom singing. She was a singer. So was the first voice that was heard on 98.1, first voice that was heard on 93.5, first voice that was heard on 103.7 and 1140 AM.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that
story. So that's the story.
Well, so you got like 4 stations now?
4 signals.
4 signals.
So it's weird. In the radio world, there's like Class C's, Class B's, Class A's, translators, AM stations, obviously, which are obsolete at this point, and then low-powered FMs. So that's the pecking order. So I have a Class A with a translator, and I have an AM with a translator. So it's 4 signals technically, but the AM you really don't promote because AM's dying and it's dead. So they gave, even the FCC, they know this. They knew this years ago. So they would go to AM radio stations and say, here's an FM translator to try to save you, right? So that's why you see all these AM stations also on FM signals, because there's such low listenership on AM.
Okay.
So it's really, you really only buy an AM station for the FM translator. And the other FM translator I got was given to me for free. And that's a whole other separate story. But it was a church. The quick version of that is there was a pastor who during COVID was out of Lancaster, and he owned that translator. And they're worth about $50,000 to $100,000, those signals. He went silent on it, could afford the bill. So I called him up and I was like, hey, would you be willing to sell that? Again, I don't have any money, right? I've already spent $10,000 of my dollars that I had. I spent another $30,000, $40,000 on overhead and capital and bumper stickers and whatever I had to do. So I'm running on fumes. I just thought I'd ask. So I go, how much would you sell it for? And he said, I was praying about it last night to God that somebody would take this off my hand because we can't afford the rent. So if you can just take over the rent on the tower, I'll give you the radio station. And I said, okay. And I called.
Wait, you didn't want to think about it a little bit, Danny? Come on, buddy.
So I called my attorney, and he's like, that's not going to happen. This never happens. I said, he just said it. He's like, well, I'm going to write it up real quick and send it to his attorney. So he wrote it up real quick. So the biggest cost of that was, for me, was the attorney fees, which was like $5,000 just to get it transferred into my name. And then it went in the paper, because you have to, not the paper.
Publicize it.
They have to publicize it, and went in as a gift from the church of whatever church he is. So I said, out of respect for you, every Sunday I'm going to air your church service that you were rebroadcasting on there for the entirety of my ownership. So every Sunday on 98.1 and 93.5, you can hear his church service at, I think, 8 a.m. and he airs it from 8 to 8:30.
That's cool, dude.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we're transitioning a little bit into your new stations, and I have a personal, I want to hear more about your Outlaw, the new one that you have, because I love country music.
Yeah.
And we talk about this all the time when we're out and about in the town, but I'm excited for that new one. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we started Outlaw 1037 at 11:40 a.m. That was one I got from a station owner out of Lake Isabella. His name was Charlie Bush, and he's a really, really good guy. He's an older broadcaster. He's a good dude, and he said, hey, I don't know what to do with this AM station, would you be interested in having it? And gave me basically like the translator. It was like a deal I couldn't refuse. And I'm like, oh, damn it. Because I was doing fine with 98.1, but then you start adding these signals, so you start adding more money. It's rent here, it's $600 there, it's $1,000 there. Then all of a sudden your bottom line starts to go up. But it was like a deal I couldn't pass up. So I'm like, yeah, and what are we going to do on it? It was doing conservative news talk at the time. There's already 2 conservative news talks in Bakersfield. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? And then he had a translator with it, but he never built it out. So I'm like, I'm already on Alta Sierra's tower. And 250 watts, there's no legal limit to the translator height, even though there is for all these other stations. So I'm going to talk a little technical for you. These other stations, a Class A radio station can legally go up to 7,000 watts. But when you're at 7,000 feet, I have to be at 78 watts, because 78 watts at 7,000 feet is the equivalent to 7,000 watts on the valley floor, because I'm up so high. Because FM radio works by line of sight. So you're already up really high. So that's why you don't need it. So that's why people want to be up high, because cheaper power bill, right?
Gotcha.
So, as you can imagine, if you have 100,000 watts running 24 hours a day, that bills $40,000 a month. If I have 78 watts running 24 hours a day, that bills $60 at the end of the month, right? Wow. It's cheaper. So that's where you want to be. So this 250 watt translator could legally be put on that tower, and it could legally be pointed towards Bakersfield. And 250 watts at that height is the same as 24,000 watts on the ground in Bakersfield. Wow. So I did it. We put it all together. It cost crap tons of money. We finally did it. This is a great idea. 90s and now country. We're going to make it more of the logo's a guy on a horse, and he's shooting a gun in the air. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. What we didn't consider is 1037 is the signal it's on, is also out of Fresno. 1037 is a station there. And they're 50,000 watts, and they're pointed towards Fresno. But for some reason, they keep pushing us out all the way down here. So I have to figure out a way. I don't know if it's my antenna, if it's my coax cable. There's a lot of engineering that I have to get done to try to make it come in clear here. Because ideally, we should be crystal clear here.
Right.
And there's areas where we'll be listening to George Strait, then all of a sudden I hear hip hop song because that's the Fresno station.
Gotcha.
And then it flips back to mine. So that's part of the headache of owning these damn things is it's never okay. Like you never just get something.
So you're telling me if we
out.
look out the window right now, line of sight, and we squint, we should be able to see your antenna up there?
You should be able to see it. Yeah, when it's a clear day, you can see it, and I can see it. Yeah, I know which chill it's on. I can see it. And when I go do my engineering, it's an hour and 25-minute drive to get up there. I go up the Kern River Valley area, go to Lake Isabella, make a left, go up Wofford Heights, go up to Alta Sierra, then go back behind the ski resort.
Yeah.
I love the people at the ski resort. They're really good people. Steve Holloway is part of that.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to Brian, who's the manager that's out there. So when it's wintertime, they'll take me on snowmobiles to go to do repairs and stuff. And I had to learn engineering myself. So I do a lot of the repairs myself. So yeah, it's been difficult.
You've definitely overcome some challenges. I remember how long ago was the fire up there? And
it was the French fire. Yeah.
Yeah, the French fire. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you were able to see that as it approached the tower. I mean,
yeah, I watched it come. It burned down everything. It saved the tower. Thank God, the fire department. Those guys are heroes. They saved the tower. But it burned down 64 electric poles. So for the next, I don't remember how many days it was. I used to have it memorized, but it was like 39, 40 days of no electricity. And in Southern California, Edison's out there digging holes, putting power lines down, and they're redoing everything because before it had burned down, all the power lines were strung up on trees.
Yeah.
They just used trees. They didn't use power poles, power lines. So it was these trees burned, and then they had to go and cut everything. And then forest management's a whole other issue, but you could see it. I took a video 6 months before it burned down, and I said, if no one comes up here and clears this out, this is going to be a tinderbox. All this is going to burn down. And I was right. The whole thing just burned. But ironically, after it burned, my signal sounded great because there's no tree coverage that blocked this signal.
Yeah, good
so then
point,
I was like, well, I got 5 years of these trees being barren because of this fire that came through. So I guess if there's a positive, there's that. But yeah, so I'm an idiot. I was driving. I had to do a generator to keep these things running. And I drove up gasoline into a fire zone with the approval of the fire chief and the CHP in my truck with a container of 100 gallons of gas into an active fire zone with, things falling from trees and burning things everywhere. I'd just go up here and go left before it jumps the road. And I'd go up to the top and I would put gasoline into my generator. It was the scariest, stupidest time of my life. And I had to wear a mask, like a full-on air filter painter's mask. And this is when everybody was arguing over the validity of masks, right?
Yeah.
So they're just like, that guy's really concerned. Oh, why are you such a baby? I'm like, no, dude, I'm in a fire zone, okay?
Yeah.
Like, you literally can't breathe here.
Yeah.
There's particles in the air. Well, what are you so afraid of? I'm like, I hate you. I'm afraid that I hate you. That's what I'm afraid of. So yeah, that was me. So I overcame that, COVID, all of it. And the whole thing it's been a nightmare. I love what I do, but it's the scariest thing I've ever done. And if I didn't have the support of my wife, I would have quit multiple times. I wanted to quit. Every day I want to quit. I go, babe, I should just get a job doing something. I'm general manager experience. I can do anything else I want. I could run all these companies. I'll just do something else. No, you're going to try harder. Yeah. Okay. And I go out and it somehow works out. Every month becomes a different month, we're now into 4 years. And I think that's how it is for most business owners. And we all like to pretend that we're successful and things are going well, right?
It's scary most of the time.
It's scary. 99% of the time. I look at my kids and that's what motivates me. And that's why I'm out today. That's why I do everything I do is because I look at my girls who want me to hang out and play and I go, I have to go make this work because I need to feed you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's scary, but I think hopefully if I die, if I don't have a heart attack till then, I'll have something that they could either continue and make money off of, or they could sell.
Yeah.
And I have something to give them because when you come from a poor background, I'm a poor person. I don't pretend to not be a poor person. When you come from nothing, I want something to give to them. When my father died, I was given nothing. When my mother died, she happened to have a life insurance policy. If that wasn't in place, they didn't have savings. There was nothing there. And they were smart individuals, I thought. But even smart people don't have things sometimes. And, I want to leave my kids more than $3,000 in a broken down car. And
you also teach them, not only your kids, but the business community. Dude, I've overcome challenges like you wouldn't believe. And the more challenges that I faced, man, this stuff seemed like a big deal 10, 15 years ago. That ain't nothing, man. Ain't nothing but you got to stop and you got to breathe and go, okay, got an issue going on right now. There's got to be a solution. You got to stop and breathe and find a solution and punch through it. So I think with what you're doing and the legacy that you're leaving your kids, maybe they get into it later in life, maybe they don't.
Yeah,
but
maybe
at least
they don't.
You're supplying something right now that they don't see the big picture of, but they're certainly hoping enjoying the benefits of it. You get to meet so many people. I love all the people you get to meet. Watching, and we're talk about the topic here of handling growth, we're getting to hear that, but you've even got more on your plate, don't you? Because you've got a nationally syndicated radio show with your wife. I mean, what's that? How big is that?
That was just, we were speaking of Christians. I was trading Christian Beck out for advertising for food because we had lost everything for COVID, right? Yeah. And all our advertisers were gone. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So Christian, I love him to death. He's such a good guy. He's like, hey, we want to do some advertising. I said, I'll do it for food. Like, if you can deliver food twice a week to my house. And he's like, I got you. Yeah. So we did advertising for that. And every Tuesday and Thursday during COVID, he would bring me tri-tip steak, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, whatever. And we'd eat that for 3 days. And it was amazing. So anyway, circling back to that point, I had to figure out a way to make money. How do we make money? I can't leave the house. I can't DJ parties. I can't DJ weddings. That's my other source of income. I'm being told I can't go anywhere. The money that they're giving us was not enough for me and my lifestyle. My rent, like today, is $2,500. So you give me a stimulus check for $2,100. That's not enough for 1 month of rent. Like, what are we going to do? And if I move out of my house, we're going to lose everything. So I was, freaking out. And then I thought, well, what if I syndicate the morning show? And my wife's like, who's going to want our morning show? I'm like, I don't know. Somebody's got to be in a bad situation like we are and need to pay barter for it, right? So I started sending it out. And then we got 1 affiliate and 2 affiliates and 3, 4. Then I got a mailing list, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're on 11 stations in, I want to say like 6, 7 states. And we have 3 or 4 more that we're negotiating. And then we signed with G Networks, which is the same ones that have like a lot of big names on it. And we're not their main priority, but we're on the list now. Yeah. And so each one of those stations you get $500 for. So $500 times 10 is $5,000 a month, right? Yeah. That was an income, now we're to $5,500. So that's, to me, that's what we needed to do. So this came out of, desperation, and then it started to work out and pan out. And I've never had high ratings. I've never been popular. I've never had that my whole career. I've always wanted it. I've always thought that I was funny, right? I always thought that I was cool. Never had it. So then when she came on board, it was something that I realized I'm at a point in my career that we're safe. We talk about safe topics. We're not gross. We're not going to have to make you change your dial on your car with your kid. And I'm like, I think there's a market for that. And that's how we pitched it. We don't do fake bits. We don't do, wacky setup calls about what was your date like last night or who sent you these roses, because all that stuff's kind of BS. And it worked, and we started getting picked up, and now we're in all these different markets, and we do TV spots, and it's kind of cool. So that's worked out. But all of it's like, it's hard to concentrate on everything. So I'm like, I need to concentrate on this, and then I need to concentrate on that, and then I still have to be a father.
Do you want to give like a brief summary to the listeners on like what each station kind of genre of music, and then like maybe what the talk show kind of like?
Yeah, 98.1, 93.5 is 90s to now, like hip hop and R&B type stuff. We kind of went into that genre. We started off more like, it was like open format. Like we played rock too and pop. We do play some pop still, but we realized that in this market, people considered R&B pop music. It was weird. So like, for instance, Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back used to be a horrific, dirty rap song when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. That was something my mom didn't want to listen to. The music video was pretty gross. A lot of girls dancing around, shaking their butt in G-strings. That was a no-no. In Bakersfield, that is a go-to wedding appropriate song that everybody will listen and dance to. No one thinks it's inappropriate. It's fine because it was the 90s, right? So I'm like, I need to change my thinking of what is appropriate and what's not appropriate because it's different for the area. Too short, E40, Bay Area, all that stuff. This business people were listening to that. So I said, okay, that's where 98.1's got to sit. So even today, I was at a meeting and some guy came up and said, I love your station, listen to it all the time. He was the head tech for a printing company. He's 44 years old, does really well financially, but that's his station. Outlaw 103.7 and 1140 AM is 90s and now country. So that one's same thought process, but I've thought more along the lines of, we live in George Strait, Garth Brooks, Conway Twitty, that type of stuff. Shania Twain, the stuff that was kind of big from the 90s. Because 90s right now, 90s and early 2000s is really huge, not just with 2554, but with kids. They seem to be picking up on it and doing it with TikTok videos. And
really? Wow, that's interesting.
And it's really weird because they keep discovering these older songs, and to them it's new because they've never heard of it before. Yeah. So they'll come to me, like my kid, like for instance, Xander, he's a freshman in high school, and he'll be like, man, have you ever heard of this band Red Hot Chili Peppers? And I'm like, yeah. Dude, they got this song, Californication. I don't even know when they released it, but it's dope. And I'm like, yeah, that came out like 35 years ago, right? And a perfect example of this is Stranger Things, Kate Bush running over the hill, right? Running up the hill is now being reintroduced to this generation. It's now back on Top 40 radio. That song's 35 years old. Yeah. It should never be reintroduced to Top 40 radio because it wasn't a hit then, but it's a hit now because they've discovered it.
That's true. I think Clay Walker, which is a country artist, like one of his songs blew up all over TikTok, and now he's big again. And I think he's starting to do like some shows again.
Yeah.
Well, you got that new movie out, that new guy Elvis. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And that's why these movies do so well and artists want them, because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is who Freddie Mercury is, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that's a big deal again. They're like, oh, okay. So it's just interesting. They're not getting their new music from radio anymore, period. 18 and under does not get it from radio, period. Yeah. They're getting it from online sources, from videos they watch, from makeup tutorials, from all that stuff. But once they get it, the people that are introducing them to songs are typically my age. So they're playing the songs that they like, which are from the 90s and early 2000s. Yeah. So now this younger generation's like, oh, I really enjoy that song. But the new music today, I don't know how they do it. There's no longevity. There's no life to it. They become number one on the charts for a week or two.
Yep.
While you have a Madonna who was number one with Like a Virgin for 18 weeks or 26 weeks. So there was longevity with those songs. Anyway, I could talk about music all day, but
I got a quick question about music. Just with you see some of these people post on social media and they'll have some music in the background, and they seem like they get away with it. I've done things where, my son, my youngest son's got an old car, and he'll go out there and work on a car, and I just love sitting, smoking a cigar and watching that kid work on cars. And I had like Red Hot Chili Peppers playing, in the background, on my little, Bluetooth speaker. That thing had been up online forever, and then I just got a notification like last week that, hey, we took this down. I'm like, but I've seen other people post and they got background music going on. Yeah. How do they get away with it? How come I didn't? Or they just haven't been caught yet?
They haven't been caught, yeah.
Okay.
So
Instagram is cracking down on that a lot. Like TikTok, and then there's somebody getting away with it still. But Instagram, you're not really supposed to be using other people's songs anymore.
Even like a quick blurb. I mean, it's like it's not a commercial post that I did there. It's just my kid working on his car.
Yeah.
And I happen to be listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers while he's doing it. That's all.
And that's why TikTok has taken off so much, because they're not in our country. So they don't abide by our rules.
Gotcha.
So they can do whatever they want. And the problem that they're having with Facebook and Instagram is they've already made these deals with Warner Brothers Music and Sony or whatever, saying, hey, if these songs are paid, we're going to have to pay you a certain amount of money. So they're like, we don't want to pay that money. So they're taking down videos with it.
Gotcha.
So it really just I think it just comes down to, popularity. Because I've done that with DJs. I'll see a no-name DJ be able to mix for 2.5 hours on Facebook Live. But I go on for 5 seconds and it's like, poop, Facebook Live ended. You got ended because we noticed copyright infringement, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, I mean, okay, all right. So you DJ a lot of events, a lot of weddings and stuff like that. People are out there with their phone and watching the bride and groom and their video and that. But the music they have to be playing, they can get that video pulled down off of social media.
Yeah, they can get it pulled down. Wow. Which is why it's a good reminder that social media isn't ours, it's theirs. And if they can take it from you whenever they want, it's not.
That's a good point.
Yeah, my fan page, I had 47,000 followers. I lost overnight because I got hacked. And I encourage people, try looking up Facebook customer service. It doesn't exist. Yeah, they don't care. So I tried getting it back. I had to start a whole new one over again. And I just reminded myself that it doesn't matter.
It's theirs.
It's theirs. They don't care. They don't care.
What do you got for the future, dude? What's your plans? What's the next step for Hill Broadcasting?
I don't know. Just trying to survive really at this point. I've had people, once you own something, I'm sure you get this, is they keep trying to get you to buy whatever they have, right? Or invest in what they have. And they think that since I keep going, I must know what I'm doing. So there's other stations that approach me all the time that want me to buy their stations, want me to take over their stations. There's clusters all over the place. And so really it's about trying to figure out what the next logical step is, if there isn't even needs to be a logical step, because your ego says keep expanding, but your brain says deal with what you have, right? And there was a guy I met named Rob from Rob's Good Time Grill in Kauai, and he had a bar that was the size of this office, and it was packed every single night in Kauai. Every single night, he was doing a killing job. And I always asked him, Rob, why don't you knock out that wall and take over that empty space next door, and you can have twice as much business? And he said, why? I make enough money doing what I'm doing. And I was like, no, but you could expand your business. He said, let me tell you a story. And he goes, this is a Hawaii proverb that he told. I don't know how it's been told. He said, but there was a guy that was fishing in Hawaii, and he was on the shore, and he could catch any type of fish that he wants. And this guy who's on vacation comes up to him and says, I could give you a loan for $1 million, and we could buy boats, and we could come out here, and we could fish all this up, and we could make so much money and have all this fish and do whatever we want. And the guy says, and then what? And he goes, well, then you'd be rich. And he goes, and then what would I do? He goes, well, you could fish all the time. And he goes, that's what I'm doing now. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I think the goal in our mind to be this huge success, we forget we're already successful with what we're doing. And I have to remind myself that, like, is it going to make me more successful or less time with my family if I expand, if I do any better, if I do this? So I always weigh that out, because I always have a lot of options, and people are always approaching with different ideas and different things. And,
that's, I've seen business. I've done that in my career with my business too, where you grow. And you kind of lose where that sweet spot is, and you got too many employees, you got too many things to deal with, you got too much work that you can't handle, and then you start sacrificing quality and all that other stuff. There's a guy here in town that has a HVAC company, and he's adamant, I don't want to grow. I don't want to. I get to go on my boat, my sailboat. I feed families. Everybody's making money. I got a great team. I don't want to grow anymore. So, and it took years to get that. I mean, he was bigger, and then he dropped back down and went, okay, here's my sweet spot, and I'm happy with that and content. Life's good.
Yeah, and it's weird because I think we all want to be like, in our minds we're like, I want to be so successful I can just buy a hotel if I wanted to. Like, I want to be able to go on vacation, and you can't judge your life off of Instagram, because we all have those friends that are doctors that are suddenly on vacation all the time.
Yeah. And
I was wondering, like, what are they, how do you have that much money to be on vacation all the time? And then I started thinking about the consequences of that, where you're taking your kids, they're not at school, who's educating your children, who's watching your house. Like, these are common everyday things that I think about. And I don't know. For me, I'm simple. I just want to spend time with my kids. I want to be with my wife and enjoy what little time we have left, because I'm 40, I'll be 50, 60, 70, and who knows when we die, and then that's it. And I doubt my final dying wishes, because I've seen too many people die now, are going to be, boy, I wish I had more money.
I mean, it changes when you, I think, get older. I do think, like, when you're younger, like when you're starting out the business, you want to keep growing, you want to keep expanding, and then you realize, oh, I'm sacrificing this, I'm sacrificing that, and other things become more of a priority, where it doesn't matter if you have the nice house anymore, it doesn't matter if you have the new car, it doesn't matter, like, time with your family, time with your friends, peace of mind. Because I know once you have so many staff, it's a constant headache. Like staffing is a huge issue. Like you don't want that anymore. So I do feel like the older you get, the more confident you are in your skills and abilities and who you are as a person. You like, oh, I can scale down and be like, this is my sweet spot, and like this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that just comes with knowing yourself. You know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think anyone who's truly successful, they always want to hire someone to run their business for them so they could spend time with their family.
Yeah.
You know, is my goal to keep fishing?
Switching gears a little bit, you talked about like what we asked, like what you're doing now. So I know what you currently are doing. You do offer radio advertising and things like that. So you want to talk about that a little bit, and then you want to talk about the backpack drive and everything.
Yeah. So I guess quickly, yeah, we do advertising. We're the cheapest in town. We don't reach everywhere. The limitations of our signal are basically the southeast portion of Bakersfield. So I always look at Bakersfield as 4 cities in one. If you live in Rosedale, you typically don't leave Rosedale. If you live in the east side, you don't live in the east side. You live southeast, southwest. I've never once been like, I'm going to go check out the Target on the east side of Bakersfield. I have a Target on the southwest side of Bakersfield, right? So you usually typically stay there. So we cover 3 cities of the 4 of Bakersfield. That southwest portion of it, we're blocked out of. But with that being said, because of our cost of electricity being so low and the fact that we reach all that, our rates are extremely low. So you have an opportunity to reach, thousands upon thousands of people that listen to our stations for a very low price with a company that cares. Because if you are successful doing what you do, I'm successful in feeding my kids. So it's not like I'm a sales guy. It's not that I can sell you and walk away. I need it to be good for you, so it's good for me. Right. That's how I feed my family. So I'll go above and beyond. If something doesn't work, I need it to work. I can add social media stuff to it. And I help people with social media all the time. I should probably make that a separate division of helping, of doing, because everyone's they're so intimidated and confused about social media. Yeah. So, and I dabble with it. I try not to be consumed with it. But I did a 4th of July thing, and I could show you. I did a 4th of July meme and a joke. And every now and then, when I put time and energy into something, you'll see reach, right, just skyrocket. And I thought this was funny, and I try not to spend too much time on stuff, but this is what took off. So I did a meme. I put fireworks are illegal, and then Bakersfield, and it's a picture of fireworks going off, like in the air. That reached 52,000 people in 24 hours.
I've seen that reposted at least 10 times from different people in Bakersfield.
From different people.
Yeah, I made that. That was me. Now, the only downfall is I should have watermarked it, but I don't own the rights to the picture, and the last thing I want is my name associated with it, right? If the photo comes back, so I can be like, no, I just copied it from somebody else, right? Yeah. But yeah, that was me. So 52,000 times. And the next thing I put up was Happy 4th of July from Bakersfield. And that's 60,000 people, and that's a video of a family that lit off fireworks, and then one of them went into their fireworks bag and blew up, boom, 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 all the fireworks, right? And then this one I just put up, and this one's, at like 10,000, and I put what people in Bakersfield do to describe Pismo Beach, and it's a picture of another beach and another. It's not Pismo, because Pismo is never as nice as what people here describe it as, right? So that's kind of what I do, is I know how to make things go viral. I know how to make it expand. I'm so busy, like everything we talked about. I also do stand-up comedy. So when I get a chance to go do it, I love to go do it, but I'm just busy. And it's I have to really figure out what I'm going to do. And the other thing that I've made time for, segueing into the backpack drive, is we're giving away backpacks coming up at the end of the month. And I want to give away 300 backpacks for kids, full of supplies and things like that, because there's a lot of children that can't afford it. And I like to remind my kids, how lucky they are that they have somebody that, that works as much as I do for them, and their mother does. So we try to collect 300 backpacks, fill them full of supplies, and then hand them out. Wasn't my idea. It's an old idea. That every idea I have is recycled from somebody else. But this was one that a local carpet cleaning company had done, and she can't do it this year. And I usually supported her. She can't do it because her daughter's getting married and she has to concentrate on a wedding. It's a lot of stress for a wedding. So I said I would take it over and do it this year, and then I'm going to hand it right back to her next year. So
if somebody wants to help and contribute, how do they do that?
They can get a hold of me. You can email me, dannyhill@rewind981.com. You can call me at area code 559-213-0173. Very
location
easy.
that you can drop off things?
No, what we're going to do is we thought about doing that, about having like drop off, but then you start getting used backpacks. So we're just going to take money and buy brand new stuff to hand that out, because especially with COVID and disease, I just didn't want to have anything donated. Right. So if you want to donate this, if you want to go and physically say, hey, I'm going to buy 300 boxes of crayons, great. Then we can do like a pickup of that. So we have different packages that we're going to do of different prices if you want to donate. And then that's going to go towards that. And then the day of, we're going to broadcast, we're going to advertise it nonstop on all our stations, and then hopefully give these things out. That's the goal. And, so far right now, I know that we have 4 or 5 different companies involved, but Cane's is going to be involved. So we're going to do it at one of Cane's locations, in their parking lot. So they're going to let us do there, and then hopefully get people pop tents and have kids come, and, we'll see how it goes. But
so imagine, they can find information on that on your website as well.
No, they can just call me. We just literally just started, because I talked to her about it on, Monday. And I said, hey, are we going to do this? And she gave me I said, all right, I'll take it over. So we finally have the package and all the stuff put together, which will be done later today. My gorgeous wife is doing right now. So once that comes in, you could shoot me a text or an email, and I could send you all the info of how you can participate if you want to participate.
I'm sure it's going to be posted all over his social media, and then, our social media and things like that.
Yeah. So I'll post up about it, and then, because it was one of these things that, I like contributing, but I like it when someone else spearheads it. Yeah. Because like I said, I just don't have time. So, but this is something I'm like, all right, well, we're going to do this. I feel like when God tells you to do something, you do it, right? I've always felt that way. And sometimes you get put into a situation where it's like, I need you to do this, Danny. Okay, I'll do that, right? Yeah. So I'm doing it. It's not something I really have time for, but I'm going to make time. So we're going to do it. And, there's going to be a reason. That day when I see a child that gets this, that's otherwise wouldn't have had it, I'll know that was the reason, So there's a reason for everything.
Well, just so everybody has some context here, because we are a podcast, and so we're recording this on July 6th. This podcast will actually air around July 14th, and so the deadline for your events to get contributors and sponsors is when?
We'll probably say the week before, because it's like the 29th of July is a Friday.
Okay.
So, if we could get it by the 21st, 22nd, 23rd would be ideal. Okay. But honestly, we're not going to turn anybody away if they want to come in the last minute and do something special. Then
awesome.
And are you teaming up with schools, or are you broadcasting to parents in need, or do you need a connection for the kids?
The lady I talked to, who does this every year, every year it's gotten bigger and bigger for her. So she started off by giving away like 100 backpacks, went to like 200. And last year I was there, it was like 350. So we advertise it on the radio, free backpacks, right? You need a backpack. We're giving away free stuff with this stuff included. Come to here this day. Free stuff is yours. And you'd be surprised at how many people show up. She also has an email list of people that she sends it out to and stuff like that. So I'm hoping it'll be just as large as she's done it in the past. And who knows, maybe no one shows up and it was a big waste of my time. But,
a lot of us have, I know one of our other hosts has connection to the Bakersfield Angels. I have connection to the Henrietta Well Foundation.
And that would be great.
Kids Foundation. And I know, so the 2030 Club, they do a backpack drive, and they always donate the backpacks to the foster kids that we have at the clinic that I volunteer at. So if you need kids, I'm sure
that'd be great. Yeah, if you could connect
that need the backpacks.
If you want to know, anybody who could spread the word, that'd be ideal, because our goal is to get as many children out there as possible. And I know that she had a role which makes sense. Parents must be accompanied with their child, because sometimes parents would show up and be like, oh, I have 5 kids, I want 5 backpacks, and you're like, no, I need your kid here physically, right? So
very cool, man. Well, we'll see if we can't help spread the word for that.
No, I appreciate it.
Do you got any more questions, Amanda?
No, I think we hit all.
All right, we're going to hit with our what we call the 3 rapid fire questions, Danny. So I'm going to ask the first one. Amanda will ask the second one here, and then I'll wrap it up with the third one. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
A father.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Love it. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
I make these stations work.
Okay, after the stations.
Kate's always wanted. I'd spend it on my wife. She's given up everything for me, so she's always wanted to go to Paris. And even though I hate flying and I'm scared to death of it, I would take some Xanax and I'd get on an airplane and I'd go to Paris.
Aw, love it.
First class, obviously, with that kind of money. So.
No, it'd still be coach. I hate spending money. So. Right? People in the front get there the same time we do back here. So.
Yeah, that's true. What is a common myth about your job or field of expertise that listeners would find very interesting?
That we have money. People think I am rich. I get that often.
Yeah.
They think I have money all the time. They ask me for money. They want to know how much I make. They, the most I ever made in radio before I was an owner was $50,000 a year. Yeah, and that's something they just don't talk about. And that's the same with television people. You know, the people that work in television, you'll see them, the news anchors, the weather people, depending on their position, they make anywhere between $32,000 a year and $60,000 a year, which not really a livable wage. It is if you're by yourself, if you're on your own.
I think a lot of people assume business owners are just raking it in and don't realize
they have money.
They're the ones that are sacrificing at the end of the day. They're the ones making sure everyone else is getting paid. And they're not always the one getting paid first. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's scary. You go through months where you're like, well, I'm negative $2,000. So not only will I not make money this month, but I have to put in $2,000 to just try again next month.
Well, not to get political, but it seems like sometimes our government looks at things backwards and forgets who's helping.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they
making the gears move.
Yeah, I mean? Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in there that you just don't realize, and it doesn't. And I'm a very middle of the road person. I don't believe anything the far left or far right says politically, and I typically don't like to talk about politics. But there's some things that are just common sense things. And for me, one of the common sense things, at least in my industry, is the ratings. Ratings help us get national buys, national ads, that type of thing. Yeah. And they're like, well, we came up with a new rule. If you're a woman or a minority, you get free ratings. Everybody else has to pay. So I called them up and I said, who was everybody else? They said, white men. So how is that not racist? Yeah. How is that not bigoted that you're telling me that if I was a woman or an ethnic background, this would be free. But since I'm not, I have to spend $3,000 a month just to get ratings to help pay for me and my family. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's just the rules, man. That's just how it is. Okay, cool. Well, now my wife owns the business. And that's what it was. Yeah. So I'm like, she's 50% owner. I'm 50% owner. So is that enough? Is she female enough for you? And they begrudgingly said, all right, but you can't talk about ratings. And it's little things like that where you go, that's not fair. No. It's not fair that I wouldn't be allowed to have the same things that everybody else would be allowed to have. And that's just in my industry. I imagine there's things in other industries that they deal with, but it's a
pendulum. Like, because I would say I'm in the middle too, but I think because for so long it's, wasn't talked about or wasn't people in minority classes weren't getting the opportunities, and now they're trying to overcorrect that. Yeah, sometimes we're now leaving out other groups, but I mean, eventually it's going to level out. But it is a pendulum. It's going from one extreme to the other extreme. Because, I mean, not even 30 years ago, which I'm in my 30s, guys, a woman couldn't go get a line of credit without a man co-signing.
Oh, yeah.
That's in my generation.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand, like, what you're saying, not to get overly political, but I think there's on both sides here that, like, yeah, I wasn't able to get any. I'm a woman business owner. I wasn't able to get a loan. I wasn't able to do all these things until recently, which doesn't mean that we should be taken away from other people's opportunities. But I do feel like our government is, like, at a pendulum, like they're one extreme to the other extreme, and it needs to level out a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like make the rules for everybody. I'm all for having everybody have the same rules. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense. And I agree 100% with you. You know, I have 4 little girls, and you know, the day when Kamala Harris was made vice president, whether you agree with her politics or not, that was an important day. It was a woman was vice president of the nation. So for me, as a father of little girls, I was like, wow, this is one of my little girls could be president one day, which was unfathomable 30 years ago, and she couldn't even get a bank account without a man.
Right.
So I do think there's progression, and I do understand why they do the things they do, but I just don't think when they make those rules, they think about how it's hurting everybody.
Yeah, no,
you know, because there is exceptions to that, and I'm not making so much money to where that's okay, and it's just go, all right.
No,
you know, I guess I have to put up with it.
I would agree. But yeah, I think it eventually will all even out, I think. Or hopefully I'm praying that. I just think, I think we were just so extreme in not having, there wasn't enough opportunities. And then, you know, you drop that pendulum and now it's all the way over here where now it's, you know, I think hopefully it will even out. And hopefully everyone will have equal opportunities for, if you want to own a business, or you want to do this, you want to do that, it's a free game for whoever wants it.
Yeah, you would assume, right? And, you know, even with that PPP money that came out, right, and all that other money, there's, you know, we got, and that's the other thing, businesses don't want to talk about how much money they got, 'cause some of them got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Some got a lot of money.
We were talking about that a couple of podcasts ago, Kyle and I, that like it was so unfair. These $1 million companies had access to the PPP, and they were the ones getting it first because they have CPAs and accountants on staff that were like, oh, our taxes are already done, let's go do this. Where small business owners, like people I work with, they didn't have their taxes and things done like yet, and they didn't have people to help them apply.
We didn't have any employees. It was just us. We're sole prop, so we didn't get any PPP money. We got a grant from the city of Bakersfield for $5,000, which was nice, right? But it wasn't a lot. And then we had to get a loan from the SBA for $26,000, which we have to pay back. So we have to pay back. So that wasn't free money. Well, there's other clusters in this market of other people that have so much money. They have their own museum, and they got $850,000 in PPP money. And you go, how did that? And it's public knowledge. You can look this up because there's websites you can go to. Right. And I go, how is that fair that a company that still made money, that was still progressing, that was still doing good, was able to still get almost $1 million in forgivable loans when they didn't shut down? Yeah. Right? It's just, the whole thing was, and I think it'll all air out in the end, but it wasn't just my industry. It was a lot of industries. How did the Lakers get money? Doesn't make any sense, right? And then they had to give it back because once people started finding out how much they got,
a lot of companies had to give it back, though. Yeah. So, I mean, the same thing with the housing authority and unemployment for self-employed. It's not happening right away, but people are getting audited, and people are going to have to start paying it back. I mean, so yeah, I mean, but also look at inflation and look at everything else that's happening because we printed out all this money.
All this money, they're going to get it one way or the other.
Yeah. So I mean. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
I had a friend who moved to Texas because everything's better in Texas. And he's like, everything's better in Texas. They don't have sales tax, blah, blah, blah. Moved back 3 years later because he's like, have you ever seen how much their property taxes are? Oh, yeah. And I was like, and I go, oh, yeah, because they get their money. Whether it's one way or the other, they're going to get their money. Yeah. They have to run that state. So it is what it is.
All right. Well, that pretty much does it for today, bud. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this with us. And like I said, I enjoy every time I get to spend some time with you, bud. So.
I love hanging out with you. It's been fun getting to hang out with you as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was a lot of good information. I mean, I learned things. I had no idea all the technical things, to be honest, that you have to do. So I learned something from today's show, for sure.
Yeah, I hate it.
All right, well, give us your call letters one last time so people can tune in and hear you.
KRWI 98.1 and KVLI Kern Valley Lake Isabella 1037.
Very cool. Thanks again, bud.
Thank you.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com, and Amanda DiGiacomo, President of Atlas Financial Solutions. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.